Hello and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast discussing the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week we are doing something so cool, so hype, and so aggressive and exciting. Just kidding. It is a very chill week because we're doing Doctor Dolittle. Woo! And I'm sure you're all thinking, wow, they went back and they did the early Doctor Dolittle? No, we did the 90s one and the latest one with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, we absolutely did not go back and do the 60s, 30s? I don't remember. It's the 60s and 30s, which are basically the same decade. And it's a musical, I think, an adaptation of the story from 1925.
And we're already doing the new Dolittle is an adaptation of that original story anyways. So
of the second book in
the
that
second
series.
book, rather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
yes.
we're not. So see, we're touching on the old school and the new school. We did it on purpose. It's very intentional.
Okay, you want to know something wild about Dolittle, which is the 2020, because they dropped the Doctor and they were just like, Dolittle, this is it. Yeah. It was a failure. It was a flop. But because it was 2020, it was also the third highest grossing film of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
Slay.
Isn't that wild? But I think they did make their money back. But
okay.
But yeah, so it was a successful flop.
Yeah, that I was what was the podcast that I listen to sometimes? I do need to go back because it's been a long time since I listened to. I bring it up occasionally, but Blank Check movie podcast. If you're listening to this, you've probably heard of it because it's another movie podcast, but it's very, very good. I was listening as the pandemic started, and they were talking about movie sales towards the end of 2022, towards the end of 2020. And it was so interesting because hearing them talk about it, it was very much of this conversation of yeah, technically it's a huge loss, but it is number 2 at the box office. And you're like, cool, this is fucking weird. Great.
I mean, nobody wants to go to the theater anymore. Just do the streaming thing. I will pay $30 to stream a movie I really want to stream because then I'm going to get 4 people to come and watch it with me. Or I'll get Danny to come watch it with me. Let's be real. And then I will feel like I got my money's worth.
Yeah. I don't see the harm in it.
I don't want to go to theaters unless it's it's like an experience, because sometimes I do miss that midnight screening I love that communal aspect, but if it's a Tuesday and the theater's empty, I would just rather watch it at home.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I love going to the movies. I love the movie theater. Generally it's just whatever. It's usually on a date with me and Eric, and it's a nice thing. But on Sunday I went to the movies with a friend, and we went and saw Bodies. And when I tell you that the theater was so excitably gay and giddy with queer excitement in general, our queen Nicole Kidman came on screen, several people cheered. This is the trailer, before the movie starts, when she does her whole wonderful monologue. Speaking of which, her monologue got renewed for a remake. She's doing a second monologue. It's coming. And as soon as she said Heartbreak Feels Good in a Place Like This, 6 people cheered, and then when it was over, everyone clapped. So I was like, oh, going into this really gay satire is going to be such a joy. And it was people were laughing at it was just, I haven't felt a communal experience like that in a while, and it was really refreshing. So
yeah,
there is magic at the movies, but
there is
sometimes it's lackluster.
I miss that stuff, but again, it's for something that you
when
it wouldn't be for Dolittle. I wouldn't go to the theater for fucking Dolittle. No,
because the only cheering that would be done is from 4-year-olds screaming at the chipmunk who farted, and you're like, yeah, it was. I'm happy we're doing Dolittle in general, because to me the first one. So okay, speaking of our history with the movies, Dr. Dolittle for me, I didn't really know anything about it until the Eddie Murphy one came out. And that was, I was very young at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, 98. I think it was, 6? Ooh, that's how old I am, everybody. And so I loved the movie. I remember watching it over and over again and just thinking it was so funny and so cool. Not necessarily even realizing that some of my faves who are in it would be my faves later on, or recognizing them from other stuff, which I'm excited to get into when we start talking about the cast in the first one. But apart from that, that's my whole history. What about you? What is your Dolittle
My Dolittle
stuff?
Yeah, I was 10. I was obsessed. I was like talking to animals. What the fuck? Like, I wanted to have that ability so fucking bad.
Eliza Thornberry who? You know what I mean?
And exactly. Like, still, yeah, because like that was also out around that same time, and I'm like, oh my god, I just need to manifest this for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I loved the movie. I would absolutely watch it a lot. But yeah, mostly I was like, man, what a cool fucking thing. What a cool thing.
Yeah. It's fun.
So.
It's a silly, fun romp. It's also the first one, San Francisco, a city that I lived in for a lot of my life, and a city that I love. It's cool to always remember that, like, movies that shaped me as a kid, when I go back and watch them, be like, oh, no wonder I was like wanting to go to San Francisco. That's like all of these movies that I loved took place there, and I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And this was one of them. Yeah. Should we just jump into Dr. Dolittle?
Let's dive in.
Let's do a lot with Dolittle. As a child, Dr. John Dolittle had the ability to talk to animals. However, his father terrorized him into suppressing his gift by way of exorcism and getting rid of the family dog. John spent his next 30 years of his life becoming who his father taught him to be, a dismissive, rich asshole who doesn't talk about his feelings and takes his own unreconciled trauma out on his family and animals. After ditching his family for a business meeting with a company eager to buy his medical practice, John hits a stray dog with his car and is both relieved and confused when the dog walks away and calls him a jerk. John shrugs off this experience and grabs the family guinea pig, Rodney, on his way to try to salvage what he can of his family vacation. On the way, John realizes he can talk to animals again, freaks out, and decides to strap Rodney to the roof of the car for the rest of the trip.
Relieved to be away from the city, John begins to unwind with his family, but finds himself and his cabin bombarded with animals asking for help. Naturally, John leaves in the middle of the night without telling his family to go do a CT scan and adopts the dog he hit with his car, so natch. John's life continues to fall apart as more animals continue to ask him for help, including a suicidal circus tiger. Inevitably, his secret gets out and John ends up in a mental institution and renounces his gift, which further strains his relationship with his family, but saves the business deal so he can make a lot of money. But after seeing the effect his actions have on his daughter, who is struggling with her own issues of being different, he realizes he needs to fully embrace all parts of himself in order to be there for himself, his family, and the animals that need his help. So he kidnaps a circus tiger, performs surgery on it in front of everyone, and everything is fine.
Everything is most certainly not fine. Dr. Dolittle. I do want to start by talking about this cast. The way...
Yes.
Not just the voice cast, but when I tell you that one of my favorite celebrities as a kid used to be Kyla Pratt. Kyla Pratt, the daughter who is not Raven-Symoné.
Yes.
Because she was in One-on-One, which was one of my favorite TV shows growing up on UPN. It was like that. And so she was in that. And then she was also the lead in The Proud Family. And so as a young kid who was like her same age, I was like, she's the fucking coolest. And I forget that she exists because I don't think, at least I haven't seen anything that she's been in recently. But as a kid, she was like a superstar for me. And I forget that she was in this. And this was like where that love started of her work. But also Raven-Symoné as a great young actor. The voice cast is stacked. It's wild. Ellen's at the beginning. Norm Macdonald obviously is like one of the co-leads. It's a circus. And I love Kyla Pratt. So this is now a Kyla Pratt Stan account. I need to know what she's up to. She is so good. And wait, was she in the Proud Family reboot?
Yeah, she is.
She is?
Penny Proud.
Yes. Okay. She's so good. Yeah, anyways.
Wow, this cast is fucking stacked too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Proud Family was so good.
Yeah,
and
I remember loving that.
She was just such a huge part of my childhood. Like, she had such a huge impact on me. And so shout out to her. But this movie is it's very fun and easy, but also there's some shit in it that I think is really emblematic of comedy in a lot of these family films, relying heavily on very simple messy tropes like fatphobia, homophobia, misogyny, transphobia.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these things are just used as easy fodder for a joke, for a nothing joke, and it's just shit. It's shit humor. Most of it is not funny. I mean, granted,
that's why I had a really hard time with this. So like watching it after because like I was like, cool, I love this movie as a kid. I'm gonna do this, and then I watched it and I was like, fuck this movie. And then I started like going through my notes and doing the thing. And I was like, okay, well, actually, when you like, the problem is there is so much fat phobia and homophobia and like men afraid to like male dogs afraid to lose their balls or like that sort of stuff where it was really hard for me to get past it. Like the moment where this man would rather die than give CPR to another man, right? Or the dog. And another big problem with this is a lot of these jokes, most of them, in fact, come from the animals, right? Where Lucky doesn't want to get his temperature checked because he has to get his thermometer in the butt. Oh my God, this is so bad. Like, oh my God, it's got in there. Now the guy has to take his whole hand in there, right? Like, and it's like, okay, that kind of thing for me. And then there's also at the very end, the way Dolittle gets out of the mental institution is by blackmailing the doctor because he has a tutu in his closet that he wears, which is again like another one of those things like they double, tripled, quadrupled down on this and homophobia or like being gay is bad or expressing sexuality is bad and everything, and it was like it wasn't even just like peppered in, it was like it felt like meat of the story.
It's the foundational text, like it is the foundation from which all of these jokes spring. And it's so subtle and such a throw. And again, like it's trying to be used in a way that is relatively meaningless because this is a family film. And so it's like, let's be a little bit edgy, but it's also like, it's whatever. It's just a joke. But for kids, like children's entertainment when you're young, you don't really get a lot of stuff, but you're trying to at every point, not just like retain information, but decipher it. Like, okay, the beats of this, they're laughing, people are laughing, I'm laughing. Why am I laughing? Okay, let me try to decipher what this is. And I mean, granted, that's probably why I hated myself for so long, like as a young person, because of all these like homophobic jokes where it's like, oh no, I'm not supposed to exist because like my existence is bad and funny and I'm the butt of the joke, right? And it's like, it seems so innocuous. It seems so like inconsequential in these movies, or at least was assumedly inconsequential, but it's like, really, you're shaping the way that children see themselves in this world. And some of those children are going to be queer. Some of those children are going to not be cis. Some of those children are not going to be this specific thing that you think everybody is.
Which, like, because, like, another part of this, too, is making sure that anybody that is othered is, we know that they're bad, right? Like, if you're gay, you're bad, right? Is what this is telling you. The daughter, right? She isn't into hanging out with other people. She wants to do science. She wants to go into STEM and she's really into this. And her dad this whole time is like, no, you're stupid. Get this out of my face. But like, he's being so dismissive of her, right? And then at the end, it's like, oh, actually, you're okay. It's okay that you're different and you're into this. So, and Dr. Dolittle hates himself for being different, right? And, like his dad who like really like fucked him up because of like everything that he put him through, right? We see how much of an asshole he became because of his father and like having to mask this part of who he is. So for this movie that is about that and is like, when I like started to like go through my notes and dig into it, I was like, that's fucking cool. Like, I'm actually really here for this. You really have to fucking think about it and like get into it because everybody else is like left out, is the butt of the joke in these conversations.
Yeah. Again, that was also one of my biggest things is I thought that was really cool. It is quite a clear conversation about like breaking generational trauma. I think that's cool. Like, hey, you know what? Just because my dad fucked me up doesn't mean that I get to fuck you up. Like, it's not fair that I'm putting my burden on you. You are cool. You're different. And that's what makes you unique. I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to be a better dad for you. I think that's amazing. And that's beautiful. And that's also like a great point of this. But that's why it's difficult because there are some really good aspects to this movie just in general, but it's like peak shitty 90s mall humor.
And this is what we grew up. So, like, again, like my family was trash.
This is what we grew up
right?
with.
My family was trash. My family, I've told you about them. But to have them and these films like reinforce these ideals that they're trying to tell me, like, I mean, it never made sense to me, but like again, because I was 10 when this came out, like those jokes, like I mean, there are still people that make these jokes and don't understand why and don't ask themselves like, why this is funny. And it's like, oh no, you're just a homophobe. Like that's it. Like that is what these have been telling you forever. And now you're like, you can't see past that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because it's so ingrained even from when you're a child, right? That like you don't think there's anything wrong with this. And then you're like, oh, you're so sensitive. And it's like, no. no.
It's a mess. I mean, granted, do I love the gay penguins? I love the gay penguins. The gay penguins are great. Them walking in, oh my God, what a zoo. Like, get me out of here. It's a zoo. Like, is it a stereotype? Sure. Are they great? Absolutely. They're such a sleigh. They're so cute and they're so femme and they're so cool. And I just wish that there was more of them and that like they got to have more power in this movie. I wish that the penguins had more power.
I wish they did too. That would have been cute.
Most of the jokes are bad, like we've been saying. There were several that I thought were pretty big sleighs. One of which is when the tiger is on top of fucking Coit Tower. Dr. Dolittle's trying to get him to not kill himself. I forget who it was down below. Was it the pigeons?
That called him a pussy?
Yeah, it's like, jump, you big pussy. Which is funny, like, because he's a big cat. And so it works on two levels. And like, also, it's like really teetering that line for this kind of a family movie. But again, they can get away with it because it's a big cat. But also, you should kill yourself. Kill yourself, you idiot. Like, that's so funny to me in this movie because it's also out of nowhere. Just jump, you big pussy. Like, I was like,
I mean, some of the animals were just like so good. The pigeons, all the animals making a like barricade so the cops don't get in, and the pigeons are like, you fucking pigs, and I think the pigs are like, hey, like, See, like that was so good.
There's some earnestly good stuff here, but it's just riddled with this other muck that like there's a level to me that still really stands by this movie just in general, but come on, like it could have been much better. Just like, I don't know.
Just take out like all of the homophobia and like all the fat jokes, right? Because like somebody's owner sits down and they're like, "Woof, fucking lady, oh my God!" And like the dog turns around and he's like, "Dang, she needs like Weight Watchers or something." Like something that's just not funny.
Also, the lady with the shellfish allergy, like, oh, she can't help herself. Shellfish is just so good. It's like, I can't stop eating. I'm just big fat. Like, okay.
Well, and
like,
part of me,
what is
I was
this
wondering,
weird character? Like,
part of me, I was like thinking that character was like, oh, well, she has a thing for her doctor because she only wants him to administer these things or something. So she has like the shellfish, like, I don't know, it's some fetish thing. I don't know. Either way, it was gross. And it was like, oh, she's stupid. Like,
literally, because either it's one, I'm a big fat person and I can't stop eating. Look at me, I'm so fat. Or it's, how funny is it that this fat person is hitting on the thin doctor? Oh my God, how could I be with such a fatty? Like, oh, they're so fat. Like, either
the way
way,
she presented her ass to like get her injection, that's where I was like, oh, she's probably into him.
Yeah. So either way it's presented, either way that this character is shown as a fat person is shown in the negative we hate fat people light that all media depicts fat people in general. Again, it's trash, it's boring, we're over it. Like,
this guy is a doctor, right? Has obviously built up a rapport with his patients, right?
Yeah.
And so for the patients to be like, hey, you're the only one I trust to like come and do this. Like, I mean, there's a doctor-patient relationship that like I feel like is just being wildly fucked in this. Like, I don't know, because like you're supposed to be a good person. You're supposed to be the doctor. Like, and just to see him be so shitty and dismissive of, somebody that trusts him or even like other patients. Like, I don't know. He's just really shitty to like his staff too. He just kind of like yells at them. And I'm like, This is not it. But then, like, again, we see that he's taking out his trauma on everybody else, which I think is the better part of this
Yeah.
conversation,
And
where
it's
he's
the point of
traumatized
it,
as a
right?
kid. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's traumatized as a kid, says he's never going to talk to animals again because his dad's a massive asshole. And then with like his kids, he's just dismissive and regurgitating all the garbage that like he hears everybody else say, where he's like, you need to socialize. He's like, does he actually think that? I don't think so. I think that's just what his, like, you know, part of the masking for him is like, you know, he's had to navigate this world and be in this world. And now he's like a big successful person. So he has to continue to do that for people to want to like engage with him or for him to still have the social status that he has, right? And also
Yeah.
especially with his dad, which fuck his dad. I was really mad because obviously everything that he did to him as a kid, but then like for him to be like the good parent, right? And be like, oh, it's fine, and like just kind of give his son like, I mean, no matter what he did, like his son was gonna be shit in his eyes, right? And then for him to like tell like the granddaughter, oh no, it's okay, sometimes we don't, you know, parents are dumb, right? And he never fucking apologized. Or maybe he did
Yeah.
at the end. He apologized when everybody accepted him, right? But he couldn't get that acceptance from his dad, just like, hey, I love you for who you are, until it was socially acceptable that he could talk to animals.
Well, not even that, but like your son is going through a very clear relative psychotic break. And you're just like, wow, my son's weird. Like,
Yeah.
maybe you had something to do with it, Grandpa. Maybe you're a big part of why he's having this moment right now.
I thought you said big fart.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
you're a big fart.
Maybe you're just a big old fucking fart, Grandpa. But yeah, like, you know what I mean? He's just like, oh, wow, he's just acting goofy. And it's like,
Yeah.
You fucked him up. You can't just get away with that.
Yeah. And to the point to where he's like, okay, I'm a rich, miserable asshole. This is what my dad wanted. This is who I'm supposed to be. This is who like, the part where I was like originally like, fuck Eddie Murphy's character, when he intentionally misnames his daughter, who wants to be called Paprika, and he's like, what, nutmeg? I mean, he had to pull that out of his asshole to like just be an asshole, right? And he like,
Yeah.
I don't think we ever see him call her by the name that she wants to use. And again, this is another thing that's supposed to be played for laughs, but it's just like it feeds into everything else that we were saying. And it's like, of course he does this. But I wish that they had like harped in on that dad a little bit more, rather than making him like the kind of, oh, I'm good. Like, I don't know. I feel like we needed to resolve that a bit.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm very happy that by the end of it, he's like, wow, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I need to be better for my kids. Maybe I shouldn't take out what was done to me on my kids and continue the cycle. Maybe that's the case. But it should have been more on the nose. It should have been a little bit harder. It should have been addressed harder, especially like, I feel like their mom, like, imagine if she had like a monologue or something that was like, yeah, look, you're not here. And when you're here, you treat our kids like shit. You treat me like shit. Like, I just want to have sex with you. Like, that's all I want. Like, I just want you to be present and to be here and to be like my partner and to be these things. And
she says little things, right? Like there's always the one-liners about like where she feels like she doesn't matter. And it's in every scene, right? Where she's like, what do you mean us? This isn't about us. Who is us? Like, what are you talking about, right? And then the next thing, he's like, oh, I got you this Ferrari. And she's like, oh, wait, right? So it's like, oh, like, wait, hold on. What are you trying to say here? Fuck that.
Yeah. Because if she had a moment to like really extrapolate on this, on like who he is to their family, and then he was able to be like, you know what, you're right. I'm so sorry, and I'm going to be better. Like, just if his actions were more like recognized as being as bad as they are, I felt like it would have everything, all the bad stuff. Because I'm happy that it happens, because it really sets the tone of like, yeah, this guy is kind of a shit dad. Okay. And it makes the payoff way better. And I'm happy that it's all there. But it was just too soft of an ending of like, oh, I'm sorry. And they're like, you're okay.
Everything's
move
fine.
on.
Let me scrub up to help you. And I was like, because I was like, why? Because, you know, part of it, like, the wife is painted bad because she doesn't believe him, right? But why the fuck would she believe him when he doesn't talk to her, right? And I do think that, again, like going into Doolittle's character, because this movie is all about him and it's all about his trauma. He the way that he deals with it is perfect, right? He shuts himself off. He doesn't talk to anybody. He, even when he starts to like, maybe think about what's happening, like, seeing a dog that he almost hurt reminded him of his dog and then triggered like, oh, I can talk to animals. Oh my God. Right. And he is like, he starts to be like, hey, maybe this is a good thing, after like he can't get away from it, right? He's like, okay, how can I work through this? And then he like shuts back up again. He's like, no, fuck everything. I'm not doing any of this. Get the fuck out of here. And seeing him struggle with that acceptance and having that not be clear cut and like, yes, everything is fine now. Like my trauma is gone. But like, seeing him deal with that and having the full acceptance of that, I think, come from seeing what he's doing to his own daughter and the next generation.
Yeah.
I think that was all really great.
Yeah, but it's it's hard for me to like fully dig in because I'm like, well, it's Dr. Dolittle. Not to be like
exactly,
but it's like it's a very like simple sort of plain story. And again, not to also discredit the fact that like, let's be very clear, this is a black story as well. This is black led. It is a black family. It is a non-white Disney story. I want that to be like, not to dismiss like, oh, this is just a whatever movie, because I do think it's a really impactful movie, and I think it like deserves recognition for what it is, especially for the time that it came out and for the acclaim that it got. But you're 100% right. Like it is just hard because like it is very simple. There's not a whole lot of depth to it apart from this main structural narrative, and like because I have
it is really overshadowed by like all the bad jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Because to me, I have so many like fun punch up ideas, and like even structurally, like I just, and maybe it was, and maybe it was cut. And I know with Disney specifically, like oftentimes a lot of shit gets cut out, and a lot of like what was intended may not even be close to what was presented here, right? Like with Disney explicitly, like they do that shit all the time with a lot of their movies. It's like, let's edit, redact until it's sort of just a husk of a easy, it's like easy listening. But homophobia, misogyny, and all that stuff is fine. Don't say that's what it is, but you can still like allude to it, and we were not going to get mad at you. So this sort of like husk of a film is
it's hard to take it seriously.
It's hard to take it seriously because the easy outs for all of the plot points are really just based in anti-queer, anti-woman, like that kind of stuff. Like,
right.
I really can't get over the Paul Giamatti. Oh, well, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to tell them that you have like a fucking dress thong tutu and you're whatever and you like to wear it. And he's like, I got you. It's like, like that doesn't make me root for this man. Like it's supposed to be like, I got this bad guy who doesn't believe me. No, King, you're the bad one. He's doing his job. And you know what? I will fully say in those scenes, I do think that there is an underlying subtext of racism, and I think that that's really apparent, and I think it's really cool that it's a part of this movie, because I think it's very real, especially in the conversation around doctors and black patients, white doctors specifically and black patients, and the way that they do not take them seriously in the same way that they treat other people. I love that as a subtext to these scenes, but at the end of the day, Dr. Dolittle, this man, John, is still a queer-phobic asshole for these things that he's done. And it's really hard to like be like, that's the turn of like for success. It's like, this is going to get him out of the hospital and he's going to go on to succeed because he's so smart and he got him. You could have gotten him out in so many different ways, but suddenly it's like, I'm going to tell people you're a faggot. And you're like, oh, okay. I don't know if that's the best way to go about this. Like, out of nowhere, too. It's out of nowhere for no reason.
Homophobia is so essential to this film that it is used to propel the plot forward at multiple times.
It is. And it's so unnecessary to the point of, like, just silliness. And so that's, again, it's hard to get past some of those things. I think as a movie, I'm cool. It's cool and I'm cool with it. But like, it is just so out of nowhere. Like, at least in that scene, maybe have more of a conversation about the racial undertones of the way this man's treating his patient. Like, that's more of an on the nose of world problem that he's currently facing. But instead it's like, oh, Like, you're pulling this thing out of nowhere for the sake of, like, teaching children what? That, like, trans people are bad monsters and should be ashamed of themselves, or queer people in general are shitty human beings and they should keep that shit in the closet. Like, what else is that teaching you? And it means nothing. It comes from nowhere. It is so irrelevant to the story. There are just so many ways that this could have been better, and it sucks that, like, every choice for, like, betterness, for more intentional, like, more unpacking of, like, social commentary on race or anything other than they just leapt to literally gay joke, fat joke, women suck too, and also fuck fat people. And you're like, oh my God, you guys.
Yeah. And that's why, like, again, like, watching this movie, like, again, I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I watched this so many times as a kid. This,
I know,
like,
same.
And I feel like that when I watch most things, like, you know, from, like, this era, I'm like, wow, no wonder I had to do so much, like, I mean, and still have so much work to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, so fucking much. And a lot of it, for me at least, is going back and, like, watching these things that, like, I have some nostalgia for and being like, fuck, right?
Yeah, I will say, going back and watching a lot of these shows and movies from the 90s, like, I mean, apart from also general society, this media specifically, I know where a lot of my internalized fat phobia came from. Like, holy shit. Like, even into the last,
still
like,
struggling with
4
that.
years, still struggling with it. Where there are moments where I'm like, I have a thought of something that is passive aggressively fat phobic, and I'm like, why would I think that? That's not how I feel. But it's like, oh no, the jokes that are told reinstill the fact that, or reinstill the opinion and the structural choice that fat people in our society should not be celebrated or seen as people. They should be seen as fat before they're seen as a person. And it's fucking crazy how rampant it is, how, like, intense and how much of it there is.
And it's wild because, like, I feel like there are some times where I just want to shut my brain off and watch a dumb movie. But I know I can't do that with a lot of, like, movies or a lot of media from this era or the 2000s or anything, because, like, it's so rampant that, like, it will just seep in there, you know? And I'll just be like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Wait, why? And that, because then, like you said, like, those thoughts will come up again. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I need to re-examine this for a second, you know?
I don't have much else to say about this apart from Kyla Pratt, we love you. You were so good in this movie. That's it. You're a star. And you raised so many of us, and you're so cool. Let's go on to let's kick the doctor out. Let's go to Dolittle. Let's do less with Dolittle.
In Victorian Britain, Dr. John and Lily Dolittle live in a lush mansion given to them by the Queen to use as an animal preserve, where John treats animals as a veterinarian, using his ability to talk to them, while Lily, an explorer, goes on adventures. Unfortunately, Lily died in her search for the Eden tree, prompting John to shutter his practice and wallow alone in his sadness. Years later, a boy named Tommy Stubbins finds his way to the mansion while searching for someone to help save the squirrel he shot. On his way in, he meets a girl named Lady Rose, who has come to summon Dolittle to the palace at the Queen's request. The pair finally meet Dolittle, who appears to have done little over the years, and with the help of his animal companions, finally convince him to leave his home. The three arrive at the palace with Dolittle's animal entourage to find the Queen on her deathbed after being poisoned. They deduce that the only thing able to save her is the fruit from the Eden tree, and it's either that or lose the mansion, so Dolittle does something and embarks on the same adventure that killed his wife.
They head to Monteverde to retrieve Lily's journal, which is the only way they'll be able to find the island. However, the group is captured and Dolittle is thrown in a pit with a tiger because, it turns out the king was Lily's dad and he never approved of him or Lily doing what she wanted. The group narrowly manages to escape with her journal, but not before the sneaky Dr. Blair Mudfly, the Queen's doctor who is totally on the murder plot, and Dolittle's self-proclaimed rival, steals her journal to find the tree for himself and sinks Dolittle's boat. He sails off, but Dolittle and the king make up, so the king gives him a ship to fulfill his daughter's last voyage. The group makes it to the Eden Island, helps a dragon, gets the fruit, saves the queen, exposes the villains, and Tommy becomes Dolittle's apprentice because it turns out you need human interaction after all. I want to say when you said do little, does little, or whatever, I want to do like, yes! They did it.
I was so proud of myself.
Wow! It's so good. And anytime there's like like they say it in the movie or it's like whatever, or it's like the plant, I'm just obsessed. This movie is the most expensive DCOM I've ever seen.
Yeah. Okay. I was kind of into it though. Like after I got out of like, Robert Downey Jr.'s fucking accent, whatever he was doing, which I was not into. And, the Stubbs little boy was like a nothing character. It was just like a silly, fun adventure. And I was like, cool, let's go on a silly, fun adventure. And it might be just because I watched the Eddie Murphy version right before this. And I was just like, this movie is significantly better because we're not really punching down at people, which felt great. And again, it was just a silly adventure movie that was fine.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
It's like, it feels like a storybook. It's not something you can take seriously. There's not a lot of substance to it, I think. I know that, we're still talking about trauma and how, like, dealing with, like, grief and sadness and things like that. And I think that's very real. They're on a ship and they have like a whale harness that the whale's going to get them from one side to the other, right? He's like open up and he is basically Sleeping Beauty, like when she has like all the animals like dressing her and helping with stuff. He's like the curmudgeon, like hermit version of Sleeping Beauty. And I was kind of obsessed with that, like as an idea, right?
Also,
like
just in terms of like a Dolittle that is, because this is based on the second book in the series from the 10s, 20s of the last century. It's an old story. So if they're being true to the adventure of a story like this, I would very much assume that it's going to be as, and I don't mean this in like a negative way, as simple as this movie is. It is just very like by the book. It is as it is. I will say, I do love the animals more in this one than the first one.
A lot more. And I like that they have more agency too, where Dr. Dolittle is not a good dude and he's not doing anything out of the kindness of his heart. He's like doing it because like, well, I have to do that. He's just so fucking sad. He can't do anything. The animals have literally been keeping him alive, right? Like, and this whole time he's deluded himself into thinking that like, oh, well, they need me because this bear is scared of people or is like scared to like stand up for themselves and has no courage. And this one needs me because of this. But like, he has this crisis at the end because he realizes that nobody actually needs him. And wow, maybe they're just there because you need them, like, because this is what it is to like be needed and be like a family unit. And I think that like that kind
really
of stuff,
sweet.
it's very sweet. It's very surface level, I think. Some of the elements are really fun where like he leaves the little stick bug to like do the spying and everything, right? Like there's these little fairy tale elements that just like, for me, plot wise, it worked. It was cute. It was silly. It was you have to go, like there's the heist moment, right? Which I was like, oh my gosh, this is Eric. And I like that we didn't have to like fight anything really. Like what he did was just, he helped the dragon in the end, even though it was going to kill him. He's like, no, I got you. Right. And sure. And then he got like absolutely shit on, but like literally, which was so funny because he has shit on this man who like, I was obsessed with that as an idea. But like, it's very surface level. It's very fun. It's very easy to follow. The kid characters are there just so the kids can project themselves onto those characters. Because like Stubbs is basically nothing. Lady Rose is basically nothing. And I'm like, why are we forcing in a romance? But like, like again, he's just there. So the kids are like, oh, look, it's me. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and
you know
fine
what?
with that.
You know what? You're right. And I feel like in my brain is trying to be too critical, like it's a whatever movie, but it is fun. It's fun and it's frivolous and it's silly and it's like a Rube
It's not
Goldberg,
punching down.
And it's not punching down. If we're gonna do a fart joke, well, it better be the apex of the film. It's not gonna be anything more than what it is, just a fart joke.
If we're gonna shit on somebody, we're gonna shit on Dolittle.
It's also we're gonna shit on him because he's well off, he's okay, and like the only thing that he's going through is like heartbreak, but like. in the end, the other people, the other rich white people who are mad at him are like, turn out to actually be villains, and we're shown that they're villains, and like, great. I love that. I love that it's not like we just don't get them. No, they're bad. They're actively bad. They're a villain. Clean cut, by the book villain. That's who that is. And yeah, a lot of the animal moments were really cute, like him dunking his face into the aquarium to try to find out if the octopus saw anything. Like,
yes.
And the octopus being like, snitches get stitches. I'm not talking. And he's like, okay.
I also did think it was cute that he kind of like learned their languages, and it wasn't just like, oh, we're all talking English and we're gonna sing Bob Dylan. Like, I was like, that was a little bit off-putting, but like when they stopped doing that, like, and you got that idea, I was like, okay, I'm better. That's better.
Not to get all Mythbusters on this, but how are the animals communicating with one another?
Oh my God, look at you.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because he changes his dialect for each animal, but then suddenly when we have these like big fun familial popcorn reading style scenes, how are these animals communicating it not through Dolittle as the translator, but to each other?
Fairy tale.
Exactly.
They all speak animalese. Animalish.
Yeah, animalish. Yeah, exactly. So it's a nothing thing, but in my head I was like, ha 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 ha! I found a plot hole in the Dolittle film. I'm a cinema king. I discovered it. I have.
Oh my God! Do you feel like a big man now?
I do. Like, I'm gonna go on Reddit and be like, "Wow, fuck this movie. They really didn't understand." Yeah, I'm gonna.
You should absolutely do that. I would. It's gonna be so great. But yeah, I like that the animals were like motivated by like emotion and connection and life experience. Like, I feel like the animals also felt a bit less like just, a fart joke, like with the rats in the last one, right? Like, even the tiger that was supposed to eat his face off, like, you could tell that there were issues. I wasn't fond of the portrayal of mental illness with that. But I mean, it is what it is. The dragon was sad that her lover died. The squirrel was obsessed with, I was obsessed with that squirrel because that squirrel was like, he shot me. He's like fucking murderer. He's like, doesn't trust him the whole time. And I loved that he got that. I love that was his character because yeah, absolutely. Even though the kid didn't want to shoot him, he was still forced to, like, he still shot him in the end. Right.
Yeah.
I loved that as like a starting point for this movie too, because the kid, like, we see men and maleness, and that this is what you're expected to do and how you're expected to act. And he was like, you have to be a hunter, you have to do this, you're fucking worthless, blah blah blah. And we're embracing like that, like, that's not who he is, right? And he just fucking up and leaves, and he's like, I'm done. Like, I like those things. I like that if this doesn't serve you, like, you can get like that hope. You know what I mean?
And also, just because he didn't mean it doesn't mean you can forget. Like, you owe him forgiveness. Like, you don't owe him that at all. It's like, I don't care that you didn't mean it. I don't care that you were forced to do it. You did it. It happened. I'm hurt because of it. And I'm sorry that that's the case. But who fucking cares? You shot me.
Yeah, and he go get him help and save his life? Yes, but that doesn't negate the fact that kid shot the squirrel,
he
right?
Did it, yeah.
And so I love these little moments where it's like, okay, cool. I am way more on board for this.
Yeah, I agree with that. There were a lot of moments, again, like whale power, like these silly, like, we sing in Sillyville, Lazy Town style. Like, I don't know how to explain. Part of it just took me out because I was like, wait, what am I watching? Like, is this... Not to be what I was just like, what age level is this for? Is this like is it honestly, and I'm not doing this as a dig, is this a preschool film? You know what I mean?
I think it was definitely younger audiences,
like, but young.
And I think that it just wasn't marketed like that.
I think that's what it is too. I didn't expect it to feel as for younger people as it was.
Because for me, it felt like a Narnia without like all the complexities of Narnia, right? Where it's like, there are things in this world and you're just going to have to accept them. This man fucking talks to animals, right? Like, I mean, we have to figure, and then it's like cute that, like, they help him with the diagnosis, and they're like they are helping him on the operating table and stuff. Like, I love these, and that's to me why it was so accepting right from the get-go that it was a storybook. And I think they did a good job with that animation too, because I was like, I love this animation. I'm here for this.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, this
You
is
know what?
a children's story.
Maybe
Excellent.
I was being willfully ignorant. Maybe I was bringing my own bias into it to be like, it can't be for like kids. Like, it's a kid movie, but it can't be like a kid because it does tell us right from the jump. It's a storybook. That's the animation. It is a storybook for children. That's the story. That's who they are. That's what this movie is. Get on board or leave. And I chose to stay, and I didn't get on board. So halfway through, I'm just like, what is happening?
I mean, how cute is it as a little kid to think like, oh, the gorilla's afraid of people too, right?
Yeah,
like the gorilla, like the more I think about like those tropes and like, does that gorilla ever like violence? No. Like, do they ever excel it? Absolutely not. And you know what? That's okay because they still get to where they're going at the end. Like, I liked a lot of those things.
Yeah. And again, going back to your point about characters, the characterizations for these animals were so good. I mean, Jason Mantzoukas as the dragonfly, like every time he showed up, so fun, so cute. Him flying to the dragon, like, see, I'm just like you. Let's talk dragon to dragon. She like blows fire, and he's like, oh fuck, never mind, just kidding. Like he's just, he is the epitome of the chaos gremlin that is Jason Mantzoukas. So it is cool to see that personified through an insect like a dragonfly. And the cast is stacked. It is
very stacked.
I will, yeah. You know what? As a whole, I think it accomplishes what it sets out to do. I don't think that there is any sort of misconceptions about what it's attempting to do. And when
you accept it as the storybook that it is and the audience that it's intended for, yes, the marketing department was awful for this.
I think because literally I did not expect it to be that kiddie. And I thought it was going to be way more of like obviously it's going to be PG, but we're going to push the PG-13 thing. It felt very Pirates of the Caribbean. It felt very like, oh, we're going to get a little bit more of an intensity, a little bit more violence, a little bit more like action. I mean, there was action in it, but
but it's not really violent ever, right?
No.
It's actually kind of pacifist, right?
It's very yes.
When you think about, so like the way that Dolittle and his companions move throughout the entire story, they don't really choose violence ever. It's like, okay, we're going to run away. Okay, we're going to steal my wife's journal back. Okay, we're going to sneak out. Like, even with the dragon that is going to like fucking kill them, like his first reaction was like, I'm going to treat this dragon. You are suffering from something. Let me help you. And he also, like, before he was able to treat it, like he did the doctor thing, right? Where he's like listening to what she's talking about and what she's angry about. And it's like, oh, I also lost somebody, and that really sucks. But that doesn't mean that you need to suffer. Let me help you.
Yeah. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. Again, I think it was marketed weird because I had such a damn it. I didn't expect it at all.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a much different film. Also, just the fact that it like devolves into like a literal fart joke. But like not just a little fart joke, like the biggest, most obnoxious,
the biggest
cheek blowing, hair raising fart from a dragon.
And that would be the funniest climax for a child.
For a kid.
Like, that is it.
So funny. Like, oh, the dragon's so mad it's going to eat them. No, she's just gassy. And you're like, oh, yeah.
And then there's no fight. It's just a fart joke. Dragon had gas.
Yeah. I do like that it leans so heavily on like this villain character. What was his name?
McFly. Not McFly. Mudfly.
Mudfly. His whole thing is like, I'm gonna get you. He's the Captain Hook character. Like, I'm me when I fucking get you. Like, you're done.
He's so silly, and you know that he's ridiculous the whole time because he's like, well, I'm better than you. Now look I'm the queen's physician. Ha 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 ha. And then even at the end when he's like, I have a second chance. I'm good now. I'm good. I'm okay. No, don't eat me. I'm good. Like, you can tell that it's performative. You can tell that, like, what jealousy and all of that do to a person and how that looks.
But he is so emblematic of the archetype of like a swiper from Dora or that goofy Waluigi type from Lazy Town. Like, he personifies the villain of like preschool level content.
And again, because we know that these emotions are bad, right? So when you like distill these characters to their archetypes and to like actually what they're doing and how they're reacting in these situations, again, keeping in mind who the kind of story that this is and who it's for, it's great.
Because I have to keep, again, I also, that's why I keep saying, like, I have to keep reminding myself that, like, everything that I've written and everything that I've, like, thought about, I kind of have to throw out the window because of something you said early on about the context of this movie and the reframing of it, where I'm like, well, no, that critique or that idea that I've written doesn't really make sense because I now understand it within its context. And so I'm like having to reframe everything that I'm thinking. And it's also just like, it is for the context of what this is, it achieves what it's set out to do. And I think it is a good movie for kids. And it is a fun romp for like somebody who's 5, maybe 5 or 6. I think it's a great romp for that age.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that's exactly who this is supposed to be for. And I think it's done really well. I think it's also where, like, you know, if you're an adult and you know that this is for your kid and you're watching it for your kid, like, you're gonna have a good time with it too. I know that I was on board. I was like, hell yeah, whale power. That's so cute. Like, oh my gosh.
Because even when the 2 kids show up early on, I was like, I'm going to be his apprentice. I was like, where'd the fucking come from? Like, who are you? We don't even know you yet. But then it's, again, reframe it.
They're projecting. Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, it's supposed to be.
Reason he's there.
Yes, exactly. And in my head, I'm just like, they did not set this character up well. It's like, I mean, they don't have to. It's not that important. Like, not that it's not that important. It's just not. That's not the point of the movie. The point is not for it to be a cinematic masterpiece. The point is for it to be entertaining for children. And it succeeds.
Understanding for children. And I think it does a really good job at trying to guide morality and trying to say, like, you can reject what you are taught. You can make a new life for yourself. You can.
And you can take grief and trauma and you can change it into something powerful and something meaningful.
When you start talking about it. Because one of my things that I struggle with in this is we get to see like the little storybook thing of like, here's the wife, and immediately fridged because then she is the whole catalyst for like literally everything, right? And she like, I don't know.
She's the reason for the season.
She's the reason. I love the fact that she is an adventurer and that she goes on adventures by herself. Like the autonomy that she has in that and in that space, I'm fucking obsessed with. Like, because generally, like, she's not the one that's nurturing, right? That's Dolittle. He's the veterinarian. He's the homebody. She's the one that's like, look, nobody's found this. I did all the research. I'm gonna go find this. I'm gonna go do this, right? And I love that, and like that she even took that so far as like her dad didn't like Dolittle, right? Also didn't like the fact that she went on adventures because he just wanted her to be safe, but that's not who she was. That's like, you know, and every point it's just like these men are beating themselves up because like, oh, I let her marry him and leave, or oh, I let her go on this adventure. And it's like, you weren't really gonna stop her. Like when they realize, like, you know, when they stop beating themselves up for that and they're just like, this is what she would have wanted, let's go.
Well, also,
then I'm on board.
When they stop centering themselves through the misogyny lens of patriarchy, that's when they recognize that, like, you have nothing to do with this. You have nothing to do with her death, and you have nothing to do with her way of life. Like, that is who she is. That's what you loved about her. You have no control over that. So stop saying, like, if only I did this. No, you're out of the equation. I'm sorry that it sucks, and I'm sorry that she's gone, but it was going to happen one way or another, and it happened. All you can do now is move forward with that trauma. Let people love you, love others, and celebrate who she was for who she was, and stop trying to, like, make her small because you couldn't control her.
And stop trying to blame other people, right?
Stop trying to blame other people.
Even in her death, I feel like she still had a lot of autonomy, and I loved that, and I liked that as a point of contention for her father and for her husband, and the fact that they have to reconcile this, right? I also love how I think she's a very strong character, even though she's not there, right? Because it's so easy to be like, oh well, she, like, they could have made her a first mate or something, but no, she's a fucking captain of this boat, right? And she was like finding like an unfindable thing, and the only reason that they get there, right, the only reason they find the ultimate healing fruit is because she left them a roadmap, because she did all that research, and because even in her death she's still helping them heal. Love that. I also love the queen. We see her, she's literally being killed by men and by the things that they're doing, but like to her for power, for wealth, for all of this, right? So she calls on Dolittle, somebody that she knows like fucking owes her, but also like the fact that he would actually let his wife, I say let, like, because it's like Victorian era,
for
right?
its time,
but like,
yeah.
for its time, like the fact that he was like, cool, go on your adventures, even if I don't love this, I'm gonna be here for you, right? So
Yeah.
he comes in, he instantly is like, oh, you're being poisoned, I got you. And she's like, he helps her. It's kind of, I guess, women helping women, because he finds the Eden tree because of the instructions, like because of his wife's diary, right? And then he's like through that able to help the queen, right? So without his wife and her guidance, he never would have been able to like help save her and presumably all of Britain or whatever. But when the queen wakes up, when she's fine, and she's like instantly fine, she sits up and is instant like, get the fuck out, everybody get the fuck out of here. And like the way she commands everything, like once that is like removed and like these men stop poisoning her, like I'm obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with the fact that it wasn't a king on the throne or whatever, like if we're going to be talking about kings and queens, right? And obsessed with a man, these shitty men are trying to kill her, and she's like, not about that. She doesn't even like be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy everybody's here. She just tells everybody to get the fuck out and is like, I'm gonna handle this, you're the murderer, like do whatever. So
yeah, same. And I mean, again, to the point of like women helping women, just in terms of like the story is powered by this dead character and the queen, who is in a comatose state, but they, like, everyone else is just a stooge, like a bumbling sort of buffoonish misstep at every turn man, like what is his name, Mudfly. Yeah, at every turn he's fucking up, and in his villainy, like, he can't get a break. Dolittle similarly gets thrown in jail, is like, he gets his boat his ship blown up. Her dad is like similarly like, oh, I'm fucking what, like, they're all
irony is me wanting to kill you but loving my daughter more because I miss her too. She would have wanted you to keep going, like, right? Like, he's just like,
it has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with these men. And that is cool. I do like that is, I mean, granted, is it a movie that centers men? Yes. But
and the parrot is feminine and is the one that is like, actually, again, like actually propelling the story. Like, things only happen because of women in this story, but they're not centered. It is about how the men literally have to follow the instructions that women have left behind and do what they are told, even posthumously.
Women are the writers, the men are the stars. That's just how it shook up for this. But I like that if that's going to be the case, it's not like, oh no, she died. Like, I'm happy that the men are portrayed as buffoons, and that the only way that things worked out or happened was because of one woman helping another.
Yes. Yeah, I do think this is really cool. I do think that Dolittle, like, not only like starts to resolve his trauma and his grief surrounding, like, his wife, but, in turn also realizes like, hey, I actually need people and I need companionship, right? And he realizes that, like, I mean, this kid, who has like a horrible home life, he's like, yeah, I've got you. You're not, like, he helps uplift that kid out of that situation. I don't know. I love it.
It is sort of a very tone. It's like a very simplified Scrooge, where it's like, oh, in order to, like,
it's a much nicer Scrooge. Let's be real.
But you have to love to be loved, and finally coming to terms and like allowing that love to flow, and recognizing that, like, people are here to help you. Like, again, like you'd said earlier, the animals don't need him. They're good. They're doing great. He needs them, and that's why they're there. And they all know that except for him. So when he recognizes that, it is sort of the joy and sort of the ease of allowing love to happen to you. Like, because I feel like he rebukes it at every turn.
Yeah.
Like, he rebukes love from everybody because his wife died, and it sucks and it's awful and it's terrible and it is sad, but sometimes that is life. And I think him not recognizing the family that he has and recognizing the love that all of these animals and these people have for him was really like, it's just, I'm happy that that's a big part of the story. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
yeah,
it is such a joyful thing to say, like, you know what, despite the harshness of what is my current reality, I can still recognize the privilege and the joy and the wonderful, wonderful people I have in it. Like, despite everything, I'm still so lucky to have people who care. And you're like, yes, that's it. Fucking rap, slay, cool. You know?
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I just realized there's the line. So both men that are heavily centered in this story, because or heavily, I guess, like the king is like the king is one of the big ones. But so I just said that he had that line about irony and how it's like irony is wanting to kill the man that blah 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 blah, but knowing that she wouldn't, right? Doolittle also has a line that says irony is when you meet a woman and then she's totally gone. So they're trying to like justify their sadness and their actions, right? But like also in the next breath kind of like being like, yeah, that sucks, right? Like so I like that they both had like a line like that to try to parallel that. I loved that, we saw like the little altar that he had to his wife and the rings and all of that, and then at the end like we see him, because like that's where she was going, that's what she wanted, like that the tree healed him even though he didn't take the fruit, but it's because he got there and he was able to like put a part of her like there. So it's like I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, the more time I spend, I mean, not even the more time I spend with it, the more time I hear you talk about it, the more I'm interested in it as a story. I think it really just, I've had this happen before on this podcast where I went in with completely different expectations, and because my expectations were so exceedingly different than what was there, the disconnect was hard for me to reconcile in the moment. So I think,
I mean, it's also hard because like when you look up anything online, like literally everything is like, this movie is shit, this movie sucks, like it's got like 10% on like IMDb or something.
Does
like,
it?
Yeah, it's like real bad. But I do think that this is a problem with the way that it was marketed. I think even with some of the colors that they chose, maybe I think this is like fresh off. I mean, he was just like, Iron Man and all these other things, right? So it was like, oh, Robert Downey Jr., you're gonna watch everything. But like, I really do think that it was just marketed poorly.
Oh my gosh. It has a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And it has a 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah,
this movie is significantly better than that. Again, especially if you watch it through that lens of like, I'm 5. How fucking cool is whale power? I still can't get over that.
I honestly think that might just be it. Like the disconnect between the way it was marketed versus what the product actually was. Like it seems staggeringly different than what I had anticipated. Like if it was more marketed as like, hey kids, it's for kids, kid film, good film, and not Pirates of the Caribbean Dolittle style with Robert Downey. Like maybe that's where there's a lot, because I think as a whole the movie does really work when you give it the right context, but maybe that's I'm falling into the same trap as so many others in this with this disconnect.
I have a hard time sometimes because like I fully was going into Dolittle like, I'm gonna fucking hate this probably, blah blah blah, right? And I do really really try to separate myself from nostalgia for things or from like other people's opinions about stuff, so I can like get my own take on it, which is fucking hard sometimes, and sometimes really I absolutely don't do it. But we all know I'm a sucker for sci-fi and fantasy, so like as soon as it was like fantastical, like, oh, the animals are dressing him and now they're doing like the surgery, I was like, fucking do it. Like, yeah.
You know what? I will say one other thing about this movie. I am continually impressed by how good Danny Elfman is at scoring films.
I did not realize it was him until the very end. I was like, are you serious?
Okay.
Oh, well, separate him from Tim Burton, and damn, okay.
Well,
great.
Yeah, because obviously he has a very unique style. It's a very specific style of orchestration and composition. Like, it is him. Like, by the I mean, like, I don't mean to like toot my own horn, but like, third note, movie started, I was like, it's Danny Elfman, and I went and looked, and I was like, oh my god, yes, I'm so proud of myself. Because I was a huge Oingo Boingo fan. I've been a big Danny Elfman fan. I mean, just as a Tim Burton fan and growing up with Tim Burton, it's like his music is like the soundtrack to so much of what I do. Similarly with like Mark Mothersbaugh and Devo and that, like, I love all that shit. But he's really like, he's getting like not that he's bad, he's excellent, but like, I was so impressed with the music. It was so good. And like,
it was really good.
It was like an elevated version of what he's done. And I think that's so cool. Shout out, Danielle.
You got it. I think I'm done with this movie. I don't know if I have anything else.
Yeah, I'm good with it. We're back.
We're back from our pirate adventure.
We got off the pirate ship, I'm his apprentice now.
I think I like you. Great. We're gonna get married, obviously, because we met when we were like 10.
Yeah. I'm just like, why are you talking to animals? Come to bed and fuck me. We did it. We watched Doctor Dolittle. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what this was for us.
All right. So Eddie Murphy version. Who was this for?
Kyla Pratt. It is for Kyla Pratt. Kyla Pratt alone. I love Kyla Pratt. That's it. She's so cool. I'm so happy she's in this. She's such a good actor. I'm starting a fan club. Who do you think it was for?
I think it was for that scene where Eddie Murphy is rocking the fuck out to the original version of Lady Marmalade.
Oh yeah. That was very queer
cute
of him.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very
okay. So I did not realize that there was I think in my subconscious I knew that the Lady Marmalade version, the definitive Lady Marmalade version, with Christina Aguilera
Lil' Kim.
and Lil' Kim, and that is the version. I didn't realize it was a cover.
Yeah.
Oh my god! So I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I was like, "What version is this? What the fuck is this?
What is this?"
So yeah, it broke my brain. So that's what it was for. Did you like it?
You know what? I think I still do. I'm gonna stand by it, despite everything we discussed. It still holds a nice place in my heart. I'm still gonna stick to my nostalgic roots and double down and say, you know what? I still like this movie. Yeah. What do you think? Do you still like it?
No, I didn't still like it. I do have reasons, talking about like trauma and stuff. Like, obviously I just talked about it for however long. But it was just too hard for me to get past the constant like berating of like every sort of phobia that you can think of just kind of being shoved down your throat. I didn't think a lot of the animals were funny. I think there was just too many one-liners that were just punching down. So.
Yeah, I get that.
Now, the 2020 Robert Downey Jr. Dolittle. Is this new, interesting, or the same? Progressive, regressive? What are you feeling about this movie?
I think it's new and interesting just in terms of like it's going back to the text. It's going back to like early Doctor Dolittle, where it's coming from. And yeah, I think it's interesting in its approach to like completely ridding itself of what Doctor Dolittle was in pop culture and really just trying to recenter it as like what it's trying. Yeah, I felt like it was trying to recenter it from the core text versus like these sort of popular, fun, modern takes on who Doctor Dolittle was. So I thought that was kind of new and interesting. Progressive or regressive? I guess progressive. But also, like, progressive because it's less messy and gross, obviously, and it's less. There's no punching down. There's none of that. So I'd say it's progressive, but it's also like, I don't know. They're so different. They're like such different movies that it's hard to like I think just from a social standpoint, I'm going to say it's progressive. What do you think?
I think that it was new and interesting. I thought that, again, I was fucking right in as it was a storybook because I was thinking about it as you were, like, what did we expect from this movie when we were having that conversation? And if it was like a dark, edgy adult Dr. Dolittle, I don't think that can fucking exist. I don't I wouldn't want that. I don't want an adult Dr. Dolittle. I want this to be fun and fantasy and silly. And I think if we had an adult Dr. Dolittle or one that was geared towards older audiences, I would be just really fucking pissed.
Do you know who would have done it too? And you know what? I'm assuming it probably was in production at some point or like in talks. Seth fucking MacFarlane would have done an adult Dr. Dolittle a la Ted, and it would have been like that's literally that's what it would have been.
That's
and it would have been so fucking bad.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad we didn't. Oh my god!
Could you imagine though? That like seems like something that would totally happen. Seth MacFarlane's Dr. Dolittle.
Nasty, absolutely nasty. Anyways, I think that this was new and interesting, and I thought it was also progressive in the way that it was progressive. It was progressive because
it's hard.
No. So it was progressive really well in one way, and in a couple of ways where we saw the men deal with their trauma and and grief and things like that, and kind of reconcile that. It was incredibly progressive because they didn't resort to violence, even though clearly, McFarlane, McFly, God damn it, Mudfly, that's it, okay. Because Mudfly was clearly was doing all kinds of violence, right? So I like that, it's pretty rare, or I guess not anymore, but where we don't have to resolve any of these things or any of these issues without violence. So I was a fan of that. I loved how much theoretical autonomy that women had. And I say theoretical because we didn't get a lot of screen time with any of them. So had we, had Doolittle's wife been alive, I mean, that would have changed everything. But she was the person leading the expedition, kind of like bringing him out or something, or, we saw the queen for like 2 seconds get up and like take command. Like I like the characters of the women in this as much as I can because they weren't really there. And I wish that we got more of them, but I still, even though they weren't on screen, I liked that they were central in a non-patronizing way. And that we kind of reconciled those feelings that these men were having where they couldn't let go and all of that. I liked that, but we just needed more women.
Yeah, agreed.
Who is it for?
Oh, well, I was just going to say kids, but now thinking back on it, Danny Elfman. It was for Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman's catalog. It's for his resume. It's for him to shine outside of the marionette strings of one Tim Burton. I loved it. Yeah. Who did you think it was for?
I think it was for Tom Holland, whose character has 2 lines, but he is second build on
top
this.
Top build.
He is top build, which I was like, okay, there's clearly other people that had a bigger part that I like better that should have been. But anyways, so it was for him, I guess, to get him out of that Spider-Man role.
Yeah.
No, that's Uncharted.
Oh my God, that's a thing. Wait, is that Netflix? Uncharted?
No, it's Sony.
Oh.
You want to play the game and then do the movie? Our first video game
I did.
adaptation?
Well, I mean, actually, we could. I did always kind of want to play that game, but I never did.
It's pretty easy. Especially if you play it on easy. What?
Woo!
Shout out.
Okay. Did we like it?
Did you like it, Eric?
It was fine. I think I like it for who it's for. As a viewer, it was big fine. It was what it was. It was okay. It was okay. Did you like it?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I thought it was cute and fun. I don't need to like go back and rewatch it, but if I'm like have a kid over, then I will absolutely put that on, you know.
Yes.
But
it's going to be it's going to be so top of mind if I need to entertain a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, oh my God, Dolittle. Literally Dolittle.
OMG.
Put on Dolittle. It's Dolittle is what I'm going to say.
It's Dolittle time.
It's Dolittle.
Let's do little.
And watch Dolittle. Wow. Oh my God. Yes. Obsessed.
Totally.
Okay.
I think
That's
we're
it.
done.
We did it. Congrats.
Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate and love all of you.
We do. And please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. And please follow us on social media and visit the NOTstalgiaNetwork.com. Please.
Our artwork and music is by Eric Lefebvre. Editing is by Danny Barkley. Thank you again for listening. And thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess.
And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical. Goodbye. This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
You enter the dungeon and see the evil wizard pointing his wand directly at you. He says, "Show me a funny and delightful actual play Dungeons & Dragons podcast, or I'll consume your souls!" What do?
I take out my phone and find Quest Friends Forever on Spotify.
I show him how to find Quest Friends Forever on Apple Podcasts.
I share the Quest Friends Forever Instagram and YouTube pages with him.
And you all get critical hits!
Yay!
Quest Friends Forever is an actual play podcast starring 4 friends with varying levels of Dungeons & Dragons experience. Join us for new episodes every other Wednesday as we embark on fantasy adventures, play fast and loose with the rules, and laugh at each other's shenanigans. No prior D&D knowledge is required to listen, so everyone can feel free to join the fun. Quest Friends 4, that's the number 4, like how there's 4 of us, ever. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Quest Friends Forever.